Our appointed time in court the next day was 9 a.m., and we were told it would entail only a short wait. Well, I learned more from sitting in an inner city courtroom for what turned out to be 5.5 hours than I did in any of my social studies classes in school. Seen up close, the ultimate discretionary and disciplinary power of the legal system over our lives is at least thought-provoking and at most quite a bit scary. I tried to put in context our physical and emotional unease at being kept in a courtroom for 5.5 hours with the daily beatings and killings and systemized brutality of blacks in South Africa, on whose behalf we were protesting. I tried to put in context our unease with the years and years spent in jail by some South African black leaders, simply for asking for treatment as a human being. The treatment we as Christians at least give lip service to, as we talk about our belief in the equality of men and women. Our names, followed by the case docket number and the charges against us, were finally read at 2:30 p.m. And as it happened with the more than 3,000 protesters at the South African consulates and this embassy around the country in D.C., the charges were then dropped. Remember, this was a letter to my dad that was printed. Dad, I would have felt real good if your health had permitted you to join me. Please know that you were there with me anyway. Your ability 22 years ago to permit me to make my own decision about playing organ that Palm Sunday at a black church has had much impact on my life, I now realize. Dad, I thank you for joining me in that church almost every Sunday I played organ. I also thank you for showing me that you believe that every human being on this earth has value. I thought of you as the handcuff strap, this, was being put around my wrists, knowing that somehow they were also going around your wrists. The handcuffs and the arrest were taken in stride, recognized as a consequence of my actions, even though they signified going against our system of law. They had no effect, though, on a set of beliefs that have been transmitted from father to son in a manner that leads me to be able to stand up in the face of evil and shout out how wrong that apartheid system is. Now was, thank goodness. Your thanks for instilling in me a sense of caring for all people was my simple act of disobedience at the South African embassy. As I was fingerprinted for caring about the killing and injustice in South Africa, I felt your presence. As I was put in a paddy wagon and led to a police station for processing because I dared oppose a system of government that denigrated the spirit of an entire people, I remembered the Bethel AME choir where I played organ, singing in our church. And as I sat in court and waited for the charges against me to be read, I remembered having some of those African American parishioners in our home for dinner. My concern was to be faithful to my understanding of the gospel of Jesus, which tells me that inasmuch as I have done it, to the least of these I have done it for him, and that tells me that I should love my neighbor as I do myself. For there remains the opportunity to stand alone against the enormity of any crime against humanity, to feel the suffering and the pain, the cruelty crashing down upon one's head, but yet summon up the strength to cry out, enough! For all God's children, the opportunity remains to choose love over hatred, to choose knowledge over ignorance, to choose action over apathy, to choose compassion over ambivalence. We have the opportunity to learn the sad stories of the past and of our own day, and create from them the hopeful stories for our future. By your living example to me, Dad, I know how much you believe that all people are God's people. I've learned this from you. My 2 young sons were with me in Washington, D.C. that day. And I sincerely hope that even at their tender ages, they see, through my act of civil disobedience, that believing in justice means living out that belief day after day after day. Your loving son, Tom. Now, you see, as a member of the ethics class, you could just listen to this, you could hear it, and you can disappear. But if you will take advantage of this from an ethics standpoint, if you ask yourself, is what I did ethically okay with you? Is breaking a law and getting arrested for it on purpose ethical? What if I had gotten arrested and jailed for being part of an action that you disagreed with? Would it still be ethical? What makes a particular action ethical in one person's head when that action goes against the laws of the land? After all, it is our laws which keep us somewhat acting in the same way in this country. It is our legal system which says that you cannot discriminate against people due to their sexual orientation, their color, etc., etc., etc. It is laws that make us whole to some extent. And if people, individuals, choose, based upon their own moral philosophy, to act against those laws, what eventually happens? So I'd like you to think about this, and then after you've thought about it a few minutes, go to the next 2 videos for the day, which are a story about Willie. Thanks.